The sound you ignore in a parking garage. The car that takes the same turn you do, 3 nights in a row. The stranger who knows your schedule better than you do. Tonight, I'm bringing you 7 encounters where someone was being watched, followed, studied. And in most cases, they didn't realize it until it was already too late. These aren't ghost stories. There's no demon in the basement. What you're about to hear is worse, because the person doing the watching was real. Had a name. I had a routine. And in some cases, had a key. Some of these people got away. Some didn't. And one of them is still being followed. Let me tell you something most people don't want to admit. We live our lives assuming we're invisible. That no one's paying attention. That the choices we make, what time we leave for work, which coffee shop we stop at, which route we take home, are private. Random. Ours alone. But what if they're not? What if someone's been taking notes? What if the pattern you don't even know you have has already been memorized by someone else? What if the reason you feel safe is because you haven't looked closely enough at who's standing in the shadows? That's what these stories are about. Not monsters. Not ghosts. People. Real people who decided that someone else's life was worth watching. Worth entering. Worth controlling. If you're drawn to slow-burn horror rooted in real encounters, the kind that doesn't rely on jump scares, but leaves something behind, subscribe to the Dark Index and turn on notifications. Because some stories aren't meant to be told out loud, and the ones that are, tend to follow you. Let's begin. I lived in a studio apartment on the 4th floor of an old brick building in Philadelphia. Small space. High ceilings. One large window that faced the street. I liked it because of the light. Natural light is hard to come by in the city, and this place had it in abundance. Big, unobstructed window. No buildings blocking the view. Just the open sky and the street below. I didn't have blinds for the first 2 weeks. I didn't think I needed them. I was 4 stories up. Who's going to see me from that height? And even if they could, why would they care? I was wrong. It started with a feeling. You know the one. That prickle on the back of your neck when you're cooking dinner or folding laundry or getting dressed, and you just feel like someone's there. Like you're being observed. I'd turn around. Nothing. Just the window. Just the city below. Just the hum of traffic and the distant sound of sirens. But the feeling didn't stop. I started noticing it more at night. I'd be washing dishes or brushing my teeth, and I'd get this overwhelming sense that I wasn't alone. That someone was watching. I'd glance at the window. Nothing. Just my reflection staring back at me. Just the dark outline of buildings across the street. One night, I was brushing my teeth and I glanced out the window. Across the street, maybe 50 feet away, was another apartment building. Same height. Same layout. Same kind of old brick construction. And in one of the windows directly across from mine, I saw him. A man. Standing completely still. Looking right at me. I froze. Toothbrush still in my mouth. Toothpaste dripping into the sink. He didn't move. Didn't wave. Didn't blink. Just stood there in the dark of his apartment, lit only by the glow of the streetlights outside. I stepped back from the window. My heart was pounding. I told myself it was a coincidence. That he wasn't actually looking at me, maybe he was staring at his phone, or zoning out. People do that. People stare into space. It doesn't mean anything. But I couldn't shake the image. The stillness. The way he was positioned. Directly across from my window. Like he'd been standing there for a while. I bought curtains the next day. For a while, I felt safer. I kept them closed at night. I stopped changing clothes in the main room. I started being more careful. More aware. But then I noticed something else. He was always home. I'd peek through the curtain in the morning, he'd be there, standing in the same spot. I'd check at lunch while working from home, there he was. Evening, midnight, 3 in the morning when I couldn't sleep, every single time, he was in that window. It didn't make sense. Who stands in a window for hours at a time, doing nothing? Who doesn't move? Who doesn't sit down, or walk away, or turn on a light? I started documenting it. I took photos on my phone with timestamps. Proof. Evidence. Something to show I wasn't imagining it. 7 days straight. He was there in every single one. Same posture. Same position. Same unnerving stillness. It was like he didn't eat, didn't sit, didn't sleep. I called the police. They came by that afternoon. 2 officers. I showed them the photos. Explained the situation. Pointed across the street to the window. They took my statement. Asked if he'd made contact. If he'd threatened me. I said no. Just watching. Just standing there. One officer went across the street to check the building. He came back 20 minutes later and told me the apartment was vacant. It had been 3 months. No furniture. No tenant. No utilities turned on. I showed him the photos again. Pointed at the window. I'm telling you, someone is in there. He nodded. Said they'd keep an eye on it. Said to call if I saw him again. They left. They didn't keep an eye on it. That night, I couldn't help myself. I stood at my window with the lights off and looked across the street. The apartment was dark. Empty. The window was just a black square. I felt a wave of relief. Maybe it had been my imagination. Maybe I'd been stressed, not sleeping enough, seeing things that weren't there. Then my phone buzzed. A text. From an unknown number. You should close your curtains. I dropped the phone. My breath caught in my throat. My hands started shaking. I looked up at the window across the street. He was there again. But this time, he was holding up his phone. The screen glowed faintly in the dark. And he waved. Not a friendly wave. Not a casual gesture. A slow, deliberate movement. His hand raised. Fingers moving. Like he was saying hello. Like he wanted me to know he saw me. Like he wanted me to know he'd always seen me. I grabbed my keys, my wallet, my phone, and I ran. I didn't pack. I didn't think so. I didn't stop to lock the door. I just left. I went to a friend's place and stayed there for 3 days. When I finally went back, with 2 friends and a cop they insisted I call, the apartment across the street was still empty. But on my door, tucked into the frame, was a folded piece of paper. It was a printed photo. Taken from across the street. Through my window. Of me, asleep in my bed. On the back, in neat handwriting, it said, I liked it better without the curtains. I broke my lease that week. Lost my deposit. I didn't care. I never went back. I never walked down that street again. And to this day, I don't know who he was. Or how he got into that vacant apartment. Or how long he'd been watching before I noticed. But sometimes, late at night, I still feel it. That prickle on the back of my neck. And I check every window in my house. Just to make sure no one's standing on the other side. This happened to my sister, Emily. She was 26, working as a teacher, living alone in a suburb outside Austin. Independent. Careful. Smart. Not the type to panic over nothing. Not the type to imagine things or blow situations out of proportion. But she called me one night, and I could hear it in her voice. She was scared. She told me there was a man who'd been showing up at the grocery store every time she went. At first, she didn't think much of it. Same store, same part of town, it made sense that she'd see familiar faces. That's how small communities work. You see the same people at the gas station, the post office, the grocery store. It's normal. But then she started noticing a pattern. He was always there within 5 minutes of her arriving. Not before. Not an hour later. Within 5 minutes. Every single time. And he was always in the same sections she was in. If she went down the cereal aisle, he'd be there a minute later, pretending to read the back of a box. If she doubled back to grab something she forgot, he'd appear at the end of the row, looking at soup cans or bread. She tested it. One day, she went to the store at a completely different time, 10 in the morning on a Wednesday instead of her usual evening run after work. He was there. She switched stores. Drove 15 minutes to a different chain she'd never been to before. Went on a Saturday afternoon. A week later, she saw him again. Same guy. Same routine. Same silent presence 3 aisles over. Emily's a smart person. She started varying her schedule even more. She'd go to 3 different stores, random days, random times. But somehow, he was always there. Not every time, but enough that it couldn't be a chance. Enough that it felt deliberate. One evening, she was loading groceries into her car when she noticed him standing by the cart return, maybe 30 feet away. He wasn't even pretending anymore. I wasn't looking at his phone. Wasn't pushing a cart. He was just watching her. Hands in his pockets. Head slightly tilted. Staring. She got in her car, locked the doors, and drove home. She checked her mirrors the whole way. No one followed her. No headlights stayed behind her for more than a few blocks. She thought maybe she was being paranoid. Maybe she was seeing patterns where there weren't any. But when she pulled into her driveway, she saw something that made her stomach drop. His car. Parked 2 houses down. Same make. Same color. Same license plate she'd started memorizing out of habit. He'd beaten her home. She didn't get out of the car. She reversed, drove straight to the police station, and filed a report. They listened. Took notes. Asked questions. But they told her unless he made contact, unless he threatened her, unless he did something explicitly illegal, there wasn't much they could do. They called it coincidence. They said people have similar routines. Maybe he lived nearby and shopped at the same places. But Emily knew better. She installed cameras outside her house. Changed her routines completely. Started shopping online for groceries. Stopped going out unless she had to. For 2 months, she didn't see him. She started to relax. Started to think maybe he'd moved on. That whatever fixation he had, it had passed. Then one Saturday, she went to brunch with a friend at a place she'd never been to before. A small cafe on the east side of town. 30 minutes from her house. A place she'd picked randomly that morning because her friend suggested it. She walked in, sat down, and ordered coffee. Started talking. Laughing. Feeling normal again. And 10 minutes later, he walked in. He sat 2 tables away. Ordered nothing. Didn't look at the menu. Didn't talk to the waitress. Just sat there, staring at his phone. But every few seconds, his eyes would flick up to her. Just for a moment. Just long enough for her to notice. Emily didn't finish her food. Didn't say goodbye to her friend properly. She got up, walked out, and called me from the parking lot in tears. That's when we got her a restraining order. It took 3 weeks and a lawyer, but we got it. I had to prove a pattern of behavior. I had to show intent. I had to document every sighting. But we did it. She never saw him again after that. The restraining order worked. Or he got scared. Or he moved. I don't know. But here's the thing that still bothers her, bothers me too. We never found out how he knew where she'd be. She didn't post on social media. Didn't check in anywhere. Didn't use location sharing. Didn't tell anyone her plans most of the time. So how did he always know? Did he put a tracker on her car? Did he hack her phone? Was he following her in ways she never noticed? She still doesn't have an answer. And that, more than anything, is what keeps her up at night. This one comes from a guy named Aaron. He worked overnight security at a storage facility just outside Tacoma. Quiet job. Boring, mostly. He'd walk the rows of units, check locks, and watch the security cameras. Same thing every night for months. Nothing ever happened. No break-ins. No disturbances. Just hours of silence and fluorescent lights. Until he started hearing footsteps that weren't his. It was subtle at first. A scrape. A shuffle. The faint echo of someone moving. He'd stop walking and listen, but the sound would stop too. He figured it was an echo. Old building. Metal doors. Concrete floors. Weird acoustics. Sound does strange things in places like that. But then he noticed something on the cameras. There was a unit on the east side, number 217, that kept showing movement on playback. Nothing major. Just shadows shifting. A flicker in the frame. The kind of thing you'd miss if you weren't paying attention. But Aaron was paying attention. It happened too often to be a glitch. He asked his supervisor about it. The guy laughed it off. Said the cameras were old, glitchy. That the system had been acting up for years. Told him not to worry about it. Told him to focus on the real problems. But Aaron couldn't let it go. One night, he decided to sit and watch Unit 217 for a full hour. He positioned himself at the end of the row, in the dark, with a clear view of the door. He turned off his flashlight. Stayed completely still. Just watched. For 50 minutes, nothing happened. Then he heard it. A voice. Faint. Muffled. Coming from inside the unit. It said his name. Aaron. He stood up. His flashlight was shaking in his hand. His heart was pounding in his chest. He walked slowly up to the unit, pressed his ear to the cold metal door. Silence. Then, again, Aaron. Let me out. The voice was calm. Not panicking. Not screaming. Just calm. Matter of fact. Like someone asking for a favor. He stepped back. His breath was coming fast. He pulled out his phone, called his supervisor. No answer. Called the main office. No answer. It was 2 a.m. He was alone. The voice kept repeating his name. Over and over. Slowly. Deliberately. Aaron. Aaron. Let me out, Aaron. He didn't open it. He didn't touch the lock. He turned around and walked straight out of the building. Sat in his car in the parking lot until sunrise. Didn't go back inside. Didn't check the cameras. Just sat there, staring at the building, listening to his own heartbeat. When his supervisor showed up at 6 in the morning, Aaron told him everything. The voice. The repetition. The way it knew his name. His supervisor didn't laugh this time. He looked concerned. Seriously. They went inside together, pulled up the footage, and opened Unit 217. It was empty. Completely empty. No furniture. No boxes. No evidence anyone had ever been inside. Just dust and concrete and the faint smell of rust. But in the back corner, scratched into the wall, were words. I've been watching you. Aaron quit that day. Didn't give 2 weeks. Didn't ask for his last paycheck. I just walked out and never came back. He told me he still hears his name sometimes. Late at night. In the quiet. When he's alone in his apartment. Just once. Soft. Like someone standing in the next room. He doesn't know if it was real, or if something in that place got inside his head. If the isolation and the night shifts and the endless silence broke something in him. Either way, he's never going back. And he doesn't work nights anymore. Jenna lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Tree-lined streets. Good schools. Families with young kids. The kind of place where people left their garage doors open and didn't lock their front doors during the day. The kind of place where nothing bad ever happened. She started noticing the car in late September. A dark sedan. Tinted windows. Parked at the end of her block, just past the streetlight where the road curved. It wasn't there every night, but when it was, it stayed for hours. Engine off. Lights off. Just sitting there. At first, she thought it belonged to a neighbor's guest. Or a teenager who didn't want to park in front of their parents' house. She didn't think much of it. But after a week, she started paying more attention. The car never moved during the day. It only appeared at night. And it always parked in the same spot. One night, around 11, she decided to walk her dog past it. Just to see. Just to get a closer look. She leashed up her golden retriever and walked down the block slowly, trying to look casual. Trying not to stare. The car was there. Windows are too dark to see through. But as she got closer, maybe 10 feet away, she swore she saw someone shift in the driver's seat. A shadow moving. A silhouette adjusting. Her dog stopped. Wouldn't move. Just stood there, staring at the car, growling low in his throat. The hair on the back of his neck stood up. He pulled backward, trying to go home. She didn't force him. She turned around and walked back to her house, pulling him along. When she looked over her shoulder, the car's headlights turned on. Bright. Blinding. Pointed right at her. It didn't move. Didn't rev the engine. Didn't pull away. Just sat there. Lights on. Engine running. She went inside and locked the door. Checked every window. Turned on the porch light. Her heart was racing. The next morning, the car was gone. But that night, it was back. Same spot. Same time. This went on for 2 weeks. She called the police twice. Both times, they said they'd send someone to check it out. Both times, by the time they arrived, the car was gone. She started documenting it. Taking photos. Writing down times. Trying to build a case. Trying to prove she wasn't imagining it. Then one night, Jenna couldn't sleep. She got up around 2 in the morning, went to the kitchen for water, and looked out the front window. The car was there. But this time, it was parked directly in front of her house. And the driver's side door was open. She felt her stomach drop. Her hands started shaking. She grabbed her phone, dialed 911, and kept the dispatcher on the line. She turned off all the lights in her house. Stood by the window in the dark. Watching. 5 minutes passed. 10. The door stayed open. No one got out. No one got in. Just the door, hanging open, interior light glowing faintly. Then she saw movement. A figure, stepping out from behind the car. Tall. Wearing a dark hoodie. Moving slowly. Deliberately. They walked up her driveway. Stopped at the bottom of her porch steps. And just stood there. The dispatcher was talking in her ear, telling her officers were 2 minutes away. But those 2 minutes felt like hours. She couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Just watched as the figure stood there, facing her house. The figure didn't knock. Didn't try the door. Didn't move toward the windows. Just stood. Completely still. Like they were waiting for something. Like they knew she was watching. Then the figure turned. Slowly. And walked back to the car. Got in. Closed the door. And drove away. Slowly. No hurry. No squealing tires. Just a calm, casual exit. When the police arrived 3 minutes later, they searched the area. Checked the street. Looked for tire marks. Found nothing. No prints. No evidence. But on her porch, near the bottom step, they found something she hadn't noticed. A single cigarette butt. Still warm. And on the underside of her mailbox, hidden from view, a small camera. Wireless. Battery-powered. Pointed directly at her front door. It had been there for weeks. Maybe longer. They pulled the footage. It showed her. Coming and going. Leaving for work. Coming home. Walking the dog. Every movement. Every routine. All recorded. Jenna moved out 2 months later. Sold the house. Couldn't stay. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't feel safe. She still doesn't know who it was. Or why they were watching. Or what they were planning to do. But she knows one thing. They were patient. They were methodical. And they were waiting for the right moment. She's just glad she never found out what that moment was. Maya had been living in her apartment for 8 months when things started feeling off. Small things at first. The kind of things you'd brush off as forgetfulness or absent-mindedness. A drawer left open when she was sure she'd closed it. A cup moved from one side of the sink to the other. Her laundry hamper tipped over. Her bathroom door slightly ajar when she always kept it shut. She thought she was being forgetful. Stressed from work. Not sleeping enough. Her mind is playing tricks on her. Then she noticed the smell. Cologne. Faint but distinct. Not hers. Not anything she owned. Like someone had been in her apartment and left just minutes before she arrived home. The first time she noticed it, she froze in the doorway. Stood there, sniffing the air, trying to figure out if she was imagining it. But it was there. Unmistakable. A woody, musky scent that didn't belong. She checked the locks. Checked every window. Everything was secure. No signs of forced entry. No broken glass. Nothing missing. She even called her landlord and asked if maintenance had come by. They said no. No work orders. No inspections. No reason for anyone to be inside. But the feeling wouldn't go away. Things kept moving. Keeps changing. Her books rearranged on the shelf. Her toothbrush in a different spot. The thermostat adjusted. Small things. Subtle things. The kind of things that made her question her own memory. One night, she set up her laptop to record while she was at work. She angled it toward the front door, hit record, and left it running for 9 hours. When she got home that night, her hands were trembling as she sat down to watch the footage. She fast-forwarded through the first few hours. Nothing. Just an empty apartment. Sunlight moving across the floor. Shadows shifting. Then, at the 7-hour mark, the door opened. A man walked in. Calmly. Casually. Like he lived there. Like he had every right to be there. He wasn't wearing a mask. I wasn't trying to hide. Just walked in, closed the door behind him, and looked around. He went to her fridge. I opened it. Looked inside. Took a sip from a carton of orange juice and put it back. He walked into her bedroom. Opened her closet. Ran his hand along her clothes. Sat on her bed. Laid down. Stared at the ceiling. He stayed for 40 minutes. Then he got up. Straightened the bed. I walked back to the front door. And left. Locked it behind him. Like nothing had happened. Maya's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone to call the police. When they arrived, she showed them the footage. They watched in silence. Then they immediately started dusting for prints, checking the locks, taking statements, and asking questions. The lock hadn't been picked. There was no damage to the door. No scratches. No tool marks. That meant one thing. He had a key. The landlord was called. He came over that night. Changed the locks immediately. Installed a deadbolt. Gave her 2 new keys. Apologized profusely. Promised to investigate. But here's the part that still haunts her. When the landlord checked the records, he found something strange. A few months earlier, someone had requested a duplicate key for her unit. The request had been submitted online, through the tenant portal. Standard procedure. It was approved and processed. The name on the request? Hers. But Maya never made that request. Never logged into the portal. Never asked for a duplicate key. Someone had hacked into her account. Pretended to be her. Filled out the form. And got a key to her apartment. They never found out who it was. The footage was too grainy to make out clear facial features. The IP address used for the key request was routed through a VPN. Untraceable. Maya moved out 3 weeks later. Broke her lease. Lost her deposit. I didn't care. She couldn't stay. She still doesn't know how long he'd been coming in before she set up the camera. Or what he did while she was asleep. Or if he ever stood over her bed in the dark, just watching. She'll never know. And that's the worst part. This one happened to a woman named Rebecca during a solo hike in the Appalachian Mountains. She'd been hiking for years. Experienced. Fit. Always told someone where she was going. Carried a GPS, knew the trails. Knew how to handle herself in the woods. She was about 4 miles into a 14-mile loop when she saw him. A man. Standing off the trail. Maybe 20 feet into the trees. Just standing there. Not moving. Not hiking. Not setting up camp. Just standing. Staring at her. She nodded politely. Keep walking. I didn't think much of it. People do weird things in the woods. Some people like to meditate. Some people just stand and enjoy the silence. But 10 minutes later, she saw him again. Further up the trail. Same position. Same posture. Same blank stare. She stopped. I looked back down the trail. The path behind her was empty. Clear. She would have seen him pass her. The trail was narrow. Single file. There was no way he could have gotten ahead of her without her noticing. But there he was. Ahead of her now. Waiting. Her stomach tightened. She decided to turn back. Cut the hike short. It wasn't worth the risk. Intuition is there for a reason. And hers was screaming. She turned around and started walking fast. Not quite running, but close. Her boots hit the dirt hard. Her breathing quickened. And then she heard footsteps behind her. Not casual footsteps. Not the slow, steady rhythm of a hiker. Fast footsteps. Purposeful. Matching her pace. She didn't look back. She just moved faster. The footsteps matched her speed. She started running. So did he. She could hear him now. Breathing. Heavy boots hitting the ground. Branches snapping. He wasn't calling out to her. I wasn't yelling. Wasn't saying anything. Just chasing. She ran for what felt like forever. Her lungs burned. Her legs screamed. Her backpack bounced against her spine. She didn't know how far she'd gone or how close he was. She didn't dare look back. She just kept moving. Then she saw the parking lot. Her car. She sprinted the last 100 yards, fumbling with her keys, hands shaking, vision blurred with tears and adrenaline. She got in. Locked the doors. Started the engine. And looked in the rearview mirror. He was standing at the edge of the trees. Just standing there. Watching her. Not out of breath. Not bent over. Just standing. Like the chase had meant nothing. Like he could have caught her any time he wanted. She put the car in reverse and floored it. Didn't stop until she got to a gas station 30 miles away. Called the police from there. Filed a report. Give a description. They sent rangers to search the trail. They found boot prints. Lots of them. But no one else. No campers. No other hikers. Just prints. Rebecca never hiked alone again. And she never went back to that trail. She told me the worst part wasn't the running. It was the realization that he could have caught her. That he was faster. Stronger. That he was playing with her. And that he let her go. This last one comes from a friend of a friend. I'll call her Laura. Laura moved into a duplex in a small town in Oregon. Quiet street. Older homes. Nice neighbors. The guy who lived on the other side of the duplex, she'd seen him a few times. Older man, maybe in his 60s. Kept to himself. Seemed polite. Nodded hello when they crossed paths. Nothing unusual. But about a month in, she started hearing noises through the wall. Scratching. Tapping. Like someone was trying to get her attention. It would start late at night. Around 11 or midnight. Just a few taps. Then silence. Then more taps. She ignored it at first. Old building. Thin walls. Could have been pipes. Could have been animals in the walls. Could have been anything. But then the tapping started following her. If she was in the kitchen, the tapping came from the kitchen wall. If she moved to the living room, it moved too. If she went to the bedroom, it followed. Always on the other side. Always right where she was standing. It was like someone was tracking her movement. Listening. Waiting for her to be in a specific spot. Then tapping to let her know they knew. She knocked on his door one afternoon. Asked politely if he'd heard anything weird. He said no. Apologized if he'd been too loud. Said he'd try to be quieter. Seemed polite. Normal. The tapping stopped for a few days. Then Laura found the hole. It was in her closet. Behind a piece of loose drywall that had come away from the frame. She was hanging up clothes and noticed it. A small hole. Maybe the size of a quarter. Drilled cleanly through the drywall. She knelt down. I looked through it. And she could see directly into his apartment. Into his bedroom. She felt her stomach turn. Felt bile rise in her throat. She stood up, covered the hole with a piece of tape, and called the landlord immediately. Then she called the police. When they searched his apartment, they found more holes. Multiple holes. Drilled through the walls at different heights. Into her bathroom. Her bedroom. Her kitchen. Angles that gave him clear lines of sight into almost every room in her place. They also found photos. Printed and pinned to a wall in his bedroom. Pictures of her. Sleeping. Changing. Eating dinner. Sitting on her couch. Dozens of them. Organized by date. He'd been documenting her. 4 weeks. He was arrested that day. Charged with voyeurism, stalking, harassment. Restraining order filed. The whole process. But Laura couldn't stay. She broke the lease the next week and moved back in with her parents 2 states away. She told me the worst part wasn't finding the hole. It was realizing how long it had been there. How many nights she'd undressed in her room, showered in her bathroom, walked around in her underwear, thinking she was alone. Thinking she was safe. Thinking the walls were solid. She wasn't. He'd been watching the whole time. And she never knew. Remember this, not everything that calls out to you wants you to come back. Follow the dark index for more accounts pulled from places that don't show up on maps, and don't always let people leave unchanged.